Hey guys, this is Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and today we are going to go over another Arnold node, and it's called the aiUtility node. This is a very special node provided by Arnold so that we can actually get direction when we apply shaders. So this is the final result. This is a jade dragon, and notice that it has a little bit of dust on the top, almost like sand. I'm going to show you how to create that procedurally. By the way, you can download this file at academicphoenixplus.com, and also don't forget, you can also while you're there, you might as well sign up for my newsletter, which you will receive pre-release content and a bunch of other perks. So again, you can download this and other things at academicphoenixplus.com. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with a fresh scene. Okay, so here is our dragon. It just has a very basic Lambert right now, and it only has a directional light. So we are going to add a dome later on. So right now, let's just go ahead and stick with the default, which is a Lambert, and I added a directional light. Okay, so when we're looking at this particular render, we can see that there's a little bit of dust at the top, and also we have two shaders driving this. We have the jade, and we also have the dust. So we're going to go ahead and tackle those two first. So let's open up the Hypershade, and I'm actually going to go up here to the top right and use the texturing node. And I'm going to close this one because I don't need it, but I'm going to leave this up because I may need it. Also notice that I have two tabs. I'm going to be using the Untitled tab first. I'm going to go ahead and press Tab and type in AI Standard. There it is, press Enter. So that's my first one. Interesting, it's acting crazy. I'm going to grab this one and right click Graph Network. That was really strange. All right, let's press the number 4 so we can see what's going on. This is going to be our jade. So let's go ahead to Presets, go to Jade and Replace. And I'm going to middle mouse and drag this to my scene, and let's take a look what it looks like so far. So this is our jade dragon right now. Now notice that it's a little bit faceted. So I'm going to stop that render. Let's go to Mesh Display, and I'm going to go Soften. Whoops, it might be a good idea to select it, Mesh Display, and then go to Soften. So what it's going to do is going to help soften those sharp edges. I didn't really like it. I prefer this look. It's up to you which one you want to use. Cool. So that's our first one. The second one, and let's label this. I'm going to call this Jade's AI Surface. The second one is going to be the same thing. Again, I'm going to click on Tab and type in AI Standard. There it is. And this one is going to be AI Standard. This is going to be the dust. So the dust has a tendency to be a little bit warmer, a little bit yellowish, orangey. So go ahead and select a color that is appropriate for you. So now we have two shaders. We have the dust and we have the jade. Now the dust, if we go ahead and middle mouse and drag it to our object and we render it out, it is going to have specularity. So we don't want the specularity, we want that roughness. So I'm going to increase my roughness and my specularity, and I'm also going to increase the diffuse roughness as well. Light's supposed to hit it and then scatter, which is what I want. And I'm also going to increase my weight to 1 so I can see it 100%. Okay, so now that I have that, go ahead and stop this. Now the trick is, and I'm pressing 1 by the way. Now what we're looking for is we want to use the aiUtility node to be able to drive this. So I'm going to type in AI, again I hit Tab, aiUtility. Select it and press Enter on your keyboard. And notice that it's got an SG node. That SG node means that we can render it. So I'm going to middle mouse and drag it onto here, and let's take a look at what it looks like right now. Nothing special, right? So the default shader is pretty simple. So what I want to use is called Flat. And right now it looks like a very flat shader, but the trick is to change this to normal. When I change that to normal, we now have a shader that is driven by the normal direction. So notice that at the top we have a little bit of green, at the bottom we have a little bit of purple, there's a mix of blues, and there's all sorts of stuff. So what we want is green, because being driven by RGB, and the green is the Y direction. So notice over here in the corner, you see how it's Y? and it's green, well, that's not a coincidence. The reason why is because the normals are basically y means that it's going up and down. So we're going to be driving this to be able to capture that color. So I'm going to press stop here. Now the issue though is that we need to be able to capture that green. So I'm going to hit tab and we're going to use an AI multiply node. So AI multiply. Now it doesn't have an SG node, so that means that it can't be rendered. But we're going to grab this and drag it into our inputs. So again, grab the out color and go to the input one. And notice over here on the right that input one is now connected. So we're going to take this and go to the green. Now, right now it's using the hue saturation values. We really want to go as to RGB. And to get the green, it's going to go all the way to the left here. So 0 on the R and the B, but we want to use the G to be 100%. So in this case, it's 255. Make sure that's all the way to the right. What it's going to do is use the color, capture that green. So let me show you what that looks like, just so it's a little bit more easier to understand if we see it visually. I mean, I'm a visual person and so are you, I'm assuming, since you're in the 3D arts. So I just grabbed a regular Arnold shader. And this is what it looks like right now. I'm going to grab the multiply node. And I'm going to drag this out color to our base color. Okay, so this is what it looks like so far. This is the utility node. By the way, this means that it's isolated select. So that means that whatever node I select, it's going to show me. This is your utility node. This is the multiplied node. And this is what it looks like if I put it in that AI standard. So the challenge though, is that we need something that really pushes the colors. We really just want to get the green to be at the top. So we're going to use AI range. So AI range, make that selection. And by the way, if anybody knows anybody in solid angle, it would be fantastic, or Maya, it would be fantastic if I could just take this node and drag it over here, because then I would be connected, automatically connected. That'd be amazing if you guys could do that. So let's go ahead and connect it. I went to the out color, connected it to the input, then the out color of the AI range, and connected it to the base. So it's not going to look like much right now, but that's because we have to really push the range. So here we are. Again, I have this selected, and just in case, I'm going to file save scene as because I get really nervous. So we have our utility node, we have our multiply node, now we have the range, and the range is going to give us what we're looking for, which is just having green at the top. I'm going to take this and start dragging it to the left, and I'm also going to clamp the colors a little bit more like so. It's going to take a little finagle. Whoa. So notice that you can invert the color, so just be careful with that. And then bringing in my input in, notice that you see how it's always only at the top, ignoring the bottom. So, whoop, too far. This is kind of like what I'm looking for a little bit. Let me get a little bit less. Bring that step in, just clamping those colors in. And if we take a look at the AI standard, we're going to get an interesting effect. We have all the green at the top. Notice that it just affects the top, but we also are getting some crazy purples. So its AI range needs to be basically clamped. So we're going to select smooth step, which changes the color, but at least now everything's basically green. Going back to AI range. Now that we have that, we can always tweak this out some more. So again, it takes a little bit of tweaking and finessing. And what I'm looking for is, I still want a little bit of that gradient color. I don't want it to be completely solid, but I just want to be able to see that green just at the top. And of course, if I go further to the right, the green gets a little brighter. So, whoops, don't go that direction. So this looks about right. Then I go over here and I see that, okay, this is looking nice. This is just affecting the top, which is exactly what I want. Okay, great. So we've captured the green. We know exactly where it's going to be, but how can we use this? Well, we are going to use the AI mix, because now that we have this, and then we're going to use this as an alpha. So let's go ahead and create our AI mix layer, mix shader, AI mix shader. What we want to do is move things around. It's getting a little crowded. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's going on. I'm going to press 1 so this collapses. So this is the jade. And the jade needs to be connected. Whoops. Let me open this up a little bit. Here's the out color. I'm going to drag it to shader 1. I'm going to grab the dust and I'm going to select and drag it to shader 2. So I'm going to grab the mix and drag it to the dragon, and this is what it looks like. Now, what you may be wondering, what is going on? If you watch my previous tutorials, which I highly recommend, it's a mix of the jade and the dust right now. So if I drag this all the way to 0, you'll see that the jade is predominant. And if I drag this all the way to 1, the dust is predominant. So when it's 50%, it just means it's a mix of both. Now, why do we need this? Well, because I'm going to grab these guys and delete. We need the AI range to drive the mix, which is what's going to drive these two shaders. So I'm going to grab the out color, and you're going to notice that it does not like it. And that's because mix is driven by black and white. So we don't need the R, we don't need the B, because we already know that the R and the B have been completely removed. We just need the G, which is the green. I'm going to select it and then drag it to the mix. Notice that it accepted it. And just like that, we have the dust is exactly where the green is, and then everything else is revealed by the jade. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and stop this and let's light this a little bit better. I'm going to go back to Maya Classic, minimize all this, delete that because it's going to cause problems. I'm going to go to, let's go to Arnold, Lights, Sky Dome. We have a color, click on the little color, go into the file, click on the little folder, and I have two of them for you. I have the one that I always use, but I also found one that's really cool called the Studio Small. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to take a look at what it looks like right now. Turn this off, press play. And it looks crazy, right? And the reason why is because it's not raw. So going back to the image here, change your color space to raw. That means that this should be defined by the color itself and not by sRGB. And voila, we immediately have a really nice looking lighting. I'm going to zoom in. Cool. I'm not a big fan of having lights all the way on the right. So I'm going to select this dome, and I am going to rotate it just a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. I prefer that the shadows are a little bit more behind it to the left, so I can see this a little clearer. Maybe a little bit more to the left might be better. Something like that. Cool. So it's starting to look really nice. I do want to push the dust a little bit further. Dust is surprisingly more complicated. It's not always flat. It actually has a little bit of speckles in it, and I really want to try to push that a little bit further just to make it look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to press stop, go back to the hypershade. I'm going to graph the network for the dust. So this is the dust here, and I have the color of the specular. So I'm going to click on this, go to the file, click on the little folder, and in your source images, you're going to find a texture map that looks like this, which is basically dust. Anything bright or light is going to show up a little bit more than dark. So I'm going to attach that. You're not going to see too much of a difference. I might want to decrease the roughness just a little bit so I can see the texture more. Let's see what that looks like. So this is what it looks before. And you can just see a little bit of that spottiness that changes the dust, so it looks a little bit more realistic. It's kind of hard to see, but the effect is basically there. Let's see if I decrease this a little bit more, you might see it more. Cool. So it's a little bit of noise in there, so I might need to do a little bit of tweaking when it comes to my render settings. There's one more thing I wanted to do. Let's right click on the AI mix shader and graph. So we have our dust when affected by the dust AI standard as a texture. We have the utility node, and I really wanted to show you what's really interesting about this utility node is that it's based on the direction of a normal. So as I mentioned before, when you click on this, you're going to get the direction. Let's turn that off. Okay. Now what's fun is that we're using RGB here. So if you want to play around, you can change this to, let's say, blue. Now, again, I recommend that you go to RGB just to make sure that it's 0, 0, and the B is driven, right? So if you take a look at this, you can see that the blue is a little bit around the edges and so on and so forth. So let's go to the AI range, and it almost looks like all the blue is actually all the way at the front. So when I look at the mix shader, you're going to notice that it's all disappeared. And the reason why is because our AI range is being driven by the G. So for us, we're going to have to grab the B and drag it into the mix. And just like that, it looks like this thing got hit by dust coming on one direction. So that's another effect. Just to play around, let's take a look at the R. So again, I've got this selected. Let's change this to R, which is the red. Again, you can see that. Grab the R and bring it into the mix. And then press play. So notice that it's just going to have a little bit on the side. And if you take a look at it, it's a little hard to see, but you can see the dust just around the edges. So if you want to push this a little bit more, you have to go to the AI range and kind of play around with the attributes a little bit more. So for example, let's say I want to see more of that red. So now that that's a little bit more obvious, I can go here and it doesn't look like it's working. So I'm going to press stop. I have a feeling it's going to crash. Usually you have to update the scene. Maybe I just need to press play. Take this off, close, restart. Oh, that's because I'm sure somebody already noticed this and it's like banging their head on the table, but here's the R and I need to drag the R, which is the red, onto here, and now we have the effect. So sorry about that. That's a little troubleshooting for you though. Let's see, for noise. You probably want to go to your render settings. There's a couple of things that you can do. You might want to increase your camera AA, and you can also increase your diffuse, your specular, your transmission, and we are using a jade, so it does have subsurface, SSS. Another thing you might want to also do is select your dome and increase the resolution. And you might also want to increase your samples. Now this is going to slow down your render times, but the quality is going to be a lot nicer. I'll stop this and change this back to RGB. So let me change this back to, move this out of the way, change this back to green. And I'm going to see how the range looks like. It's a little over the top. Let me go back to my range and just kind of decrease this a little bit. All right, let's see what that looks like. Grab the green, drag it in here. Let's do the whole thing. And actually, let me make my render settings just a little bit bigger. Just because now it's the final render, I'm really happy with it. Let's go ahead and make this a lot bigger, HD 1080. Now the render time is going to be a lot longer, but hopefully you'll sit with me as we admire the amazing, cool stuff that Arnold shader has for us. I really was a little hesitant about using Arnold, but now I am falling madly in love with its capacity. This stuff would have taken forever using Mental Ray, and now it has so many really fantastic tools, and it's so fast and efficient that I am totally in love with Maya's new Arnold shaders. So thank you, Solid Angle. There's a couple of weird things. It has Maya caches all that now, but the stuff that I can now produce is pretty awesome. Thank you very much, Solid Angle. Hopefully this tutorial was helpful. It's just a quick tutorial on how to create dust on your objects. So for example, if you have a museum and you want to cover it in dust, you do not need to shade everything. You can just create a procedural shader and you will have something very quickly being covered by whatever you like. Sand, you can change this to snow. Snow's a little bit more complicated, but you can do a lot of really fantastic things with the Arnold shader. So that is the aiUtility node. Thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate it. Hopefully you found this as fascinating as I find these things fascinating. It's a mix of a couple of things. We're using the shader, we're using the AI range, the mix shader. We're also using utility node, and of course the AI range, and so many other crazy things. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. By the way, you can download this awesome dragon at academicphoenixplus.com so you can follow along and you can make a beautiful, amazing things. So I don't know. I don't think it's done rendering, but have fun. This stuff is awesome. We could be doing other things like, I don't know. I have a friend who's a nurse and she always talks about fluids. So I'm like, we could be doing something gross like dealing with fluids, but instead we're creating beautiful art. So hopefully my tutorials are helping you become a stronger artist and you get to produce some gorgeous work. So thank you so much for sitting here with me as we render this out. It's taken a little bit longer, but I think at the end, if you just see the nice, gorgeous details that we're getting along here, it's just so pretty. If you have any comments, please share down below. Any suggestions, please. Also, if you find this helpful, by all means, please share with your friends, your peers, your family. Just share away. I would always appreciate you sharing my stuff. And this is still going. It's high quality, so that's okay. The wait is worth it. But I'm really getting to love the way these things kind of fall over here, and that's just so nice and pretty. I'm going to pause the recording for now, and then when this is rendered, I'll show you the complete thing. So thank you for sitting around with me and listening, and I will be right back. All right, here is the results. It only took a little bit of time, about 7 minutes. Not too bad for something this complicated. I mean, it's got subsurface, it's got reflections, it's using an HDR dome. Back in the day, guys, when I was probably your age, maybe younger, this thing would take forever. So this is, for me, 7 minutes is not too bad. Just open up a bottle of wine and you are good to wait, or read a good book. All right, so there's still a little bit of noise, so I can definitely pump up the values a little bit more when it comes to the light tone as well as the settings. But overall, this is the final results. So it's a beautiful effect. Let me know if you guys have any questions at all. Thank you again so much. I truly appreciate all your support, and I will see you next time.